2D, no fate.
Hey guys, Metal Jesus here, and I'm back with a much anticipated review of Terminator 2D, No Fate. This was a game that when it was announced, it made all sorts of news. It was everywhere. People were very excited for this and surprised to see that they were making a brand new Terminator game, but in that old pixel art style. And it's finally here. I played it and beat it a couple times, and I'm going to give you my thoughts.
Termination negative. Termination imminent. Checkpoint.
First up, this is developed by Bitmap Bureau and published by Real Entertainment for the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 5, the Xbox series of consoles, the Switch, Windows, Mac, and Linux. So basically pretty much everywhere except for, I guess, mobile. And the developers have said in several interviews that this is the Terminator 2 game they wish they would have got back in 1991 when this classic action movie came out. This is mostly a run-and-gun shooter, very similar to Contra and Metal Slug, although it has a bit more variety than that as we get into the different levels. It mostly follows the main movie plot points, but in a cool twist, the game also lets you choose different endings based on your choices. So you're going to be playing as Sarah Connor and her son John Connor, both as a kid, but also in the future when he commands the human resistance against Skynet. And you're going to be playing as Arnie, the lovable T-800 Terminator. One of the things you're going to notice right off the bat are the gorgeous pixel art intros and cutscenes. All of them recreated and inspired by that movie, and they're sprinkled all throughout the game, and you're going to love it if you are a fan of the movie to see those scenes recreated in this way. One thing that's really cool, at about 2/3 through the story mode, it's going to ask you to make some choices. Now, the first time you play the game, you pretty much have to stick to the original story. However, if you beat the game and replay it, those options open up and you can see alternative outcomes and different endings become available. And speaking of levels, this has 12 main levels, but like I said, you get additional levels depending on what you choose in your second playthrough. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the main menu. So you have a story mode, you've got an arcade mode, infinite mode, boss rush, also mother of the future, and level training. You'll notice that when you first start the game on your first playthrough, some of these are grayed out, and again, that's because you have to unlock them after beating the game once. And that's actually not that big of a deal because I was able to beat this game, I think the first time at around 35 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, something like that. And so this game is definitely meant to be played multiple times. The options are pretty straightforward, but there are a couple interesting things here, including CRT shaders. So that will add scan lines, but honestly, I thought they were okay. I don't really think it needs to be on for this game, and it does dim the output a little bit. So for this video, I'm going to leave them off. Database has all the characters and enemies you run into and their animations. This populates as you play the game, but I'm only going to show you right here the stuff early on, so that way we can avoid some spoilers. View Attract mode lets you see that awesome intro again, and then under audio there is a jukebox player that lets you listen to specific tracks as you unlock them when you play the game. Now let's dive deeper into the levels, and as I said, this is mostly a run and gun shooter and it plays extremely well. You're going to feel right at home if you played these kind of arcade games before. However, it does mix it up because there is a racing / chase level on a motorcycle as well as with a truck later on. There's also a fun stealth level here where you play as Sarah and you're trying to escape the hospital and she needs to hide from the T-1000 that's looking for her, as well as the medical staff that are working there. In the middle of that, they added a fun and kind of quick mini game that you have to play to unlock the doors. Now, thankfully, it's nothing complicated, but it does ratchet up the tension when you're being hunted down and you're trying to hide. I thought this was pretty cool and a nice surprise, especially in the middle of a typical run and gun game. Also, there is a pure beat 'em up level. This is when Arnie arrives from the future. He's naked and he needs to find some clothing, so he goes into that bar. Now, a little surprise here. I wish I could play you some of the audio during this section because they've actually licensed the song Bad to the Bone by George Thorogood. This was a cool surprise from the movie and a really nice touch. This was a hilarious level. Like most games of this type, there is no shortage of action in these levels, and you'll often find mid-level bosses as well as the big boss that's kind of over the top at the end of a level. Plus, there's a ranking system based on your performance, so you're encouraged to go back and try and improve your score. And it tallies it all up at the end of the game as well, and then there is an overall high score rankings.
Continue acquired.
As you can tell, I thoroughly enjoyed my time playing this game. I'm so glad that it turned out as well as it did, because it's such a beloved franchise, right? And so I think a lot of us were excited to see something like this announced, but also apprehensive, is it going to live up to the hype? And I have to say, thankfully, it does. And it's not very long. It's obviously based on arcade games. And so, you're going to be able to beat this the first time around, 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, something like that, depending on the difficulty that you choose. But again, you're encouraged to go back and try those other choices to get other endings. And so you're going to be putting double or triple the time in as you try out the different options and try to get a better score. Another thing to consider is that Bitmap Bureau are known for bringing their games to almost every system known to man. And I suspect that this game will be no different because they're starting off with modern consoles with this, but I bet you that we're going to see maybe a Super Nintendo or a Genesis version eventually, maybe a Game Boy Advance version or something, because that's exactly what they did with their previous game, Xenocrisis. And while we're at it, I'd love to see them do more of this for other classic action movies, right? Maybe they could do an Escape from New York or The Fifth Element, maybe Above the Law or Roadhouse. I think that would be amazing. So, the game's out now. There is going to be a physical version, and that's my review of this game. So go and check it out. And as always, guys, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.
Bonus acquired.